What is up, Mizzou fans? Welcome back to another live post-game show on my channel. My name is Josh Fan of ShowMeFootball.com, covering your Missouri Tigers. And today I am joined by my co-host, as always, Brayden Dowers. And together we are going to break down Missouri's 27-24 win over the Iowa Hawkeyes in the 2024 Music City Bowl. Mizzou reaches 10 wins this season for the second time in 2 years, which makes that the first time Mizzou, Brayden, has won 10 games in back-to-back years since the 2013-2014 season. So although the season was a little bit disappointing in SEC play for Mizzou fans, overall, you can't scoff at two back-to-back 10-win seasons for this program, and I think that's a good place to start after Mizzou wrapped up this game with another close finish. Also, one more thing I'll say, Brayden, before you get your initial take in, but this was another one-score game in which Mizzou was able to execute down the stretch and win. And for as much crap as Eli Drinkwitz gets for in-game management blunders, and he has had plenty of them, when it comes down to it, Mizzou has been really, really, really good in close games over the past two seasons.
For sure. There was a lot of moments in this game where I didn't know what the plan was, specifically in that fourth quarter. And I don't know if today was necessarily Eli Drinkwitz's coaching ability. I think it was more Kirk Ferentz's inability to coach and keep up with the modern game of football.
Sure.
But you got to be happy about this win. I'm not going to nitpick it too much. It's a bowl game. We were down to basically all of our second-string players in the second half because Theo Weiss was out. Marquise Johnson was a little bit banged up there at the end. Brett Norfleet's out. So you have the B offense out there and Brady Cook. I mean, we saw some random kid from Lee Summit who I didn't even know that was on the roster getting he got to catch Luke Makey or something was his name.
Logan Muckey.
We got to see a little bit of James Madison, which I know you mentioned in the preview that we did. And again, while this game was kind of an encapsulation of what this Mizzou season was outside of a little bit of the offense, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
You got to be happy with the 24-14 comeback win. Like, you were down 24-14 in the fourth or late in the third, and you came back and you won 27-24. That's a good win. Like, can't put it any other way. That is a good win. Again, I know me and you both have.
It's a good win over an Iowa team. Go ahead. Yeah. Well, I was going to say
Iowa is a team. Yeah.
Sorry, there's a little bit of a delay.
Yeah. When Iowa's a team that when they score 24 or more points, haven't lost since 2020 until now. So that's a pretty cool accomplishment. Like, Iowa's, I think, 33-0 before today whenever they had scored 21 or more points or something like that. So for Mizzou to come back from down 24-14 against a good Iowa defense and a Iowa offense that wasn't terrible in the first half at least, that's an impressive win. It's not a great win, but it's still an impressive showing in a bowl game, and it's something that you can take away and be happy with to end your year.
Yeah, and I mean, if you look just, in the win-loss category, it's good to get a win over them, and I know, so they played in the Insight Bowl. That might have been, was that 2014? Was that the same year that they also won 10 games? I can't remember, but I think Mizzou lost that one. So it was good to kind of get Iowa back a little bit in this one.
We lost to them in 2010.
I'm just going to jump in.
We had Gabbard.
Yeah, that's right, 2010. Yeah, and he threw an interception to, I think it was Micah Hyde.
Yep.
That's how long ago that was. So Mizzou caps off the season with the win, which I think is good. I want to start there because we discussed in our preview kind of the state of bowl games in college football right now and how they don't really matter all that much. And I still kind of hold true to that, that these bowl games don't matter that much, but they do matter to the fans. It's more of a fan experience thing and a celebration of the season. And someone said this on the Power Mizzou message board that I was reading right before we went live, and they may even be listening to the show. Could have been someone out there that said this, but they said, it matters to the kids sitting 10 rows behind the field that are going crazy when Mizzou takes over on downs after the big fourth down stop. Like, that's what these bowl games are for, and they're exciting for the fan base. And it just is good to end the season on a high note and keep the momentum going into next year. Since Mizzou won, Brayden, like I said yesterday, we're going to count the bowl game. So that gets in our regular season record. If they had lost the game, then I wouldn't include it in the overall record. But since they won, I'm including it. And it's really good to keep your name in the mix. Again, I know it was a disappointing year overall as far as expectations go, but it's still good to win 10 games, keep your name in the mix, reload, and go after it again next year. This is also the second time this week that Mizzou beat Iowa, because they also beat them out for Bo Pribula in the transfer portal because they really wanted him, and they were going crazy on their message board after they missed out on him. And now they want to fire Kirk Ferentz after this game. No surprises there. But let's start with the offense, because they were good today. And we were talking about it in the group chat during the game, Brayden. You were kind of thinking to yourself, where was this offense all year? I mean, they moved the ball really well in this game. Brady Cook threw for 287 yards. And in our preview, I predicted him to throw for less than 200. And the most impressive part about that performance to me, even though he was only 18 of 32, even though he was only 18 of 32, his top weapons were dropping like flies in this game, and he was still managing to put together some drives, or at least milk enough of the clock there in the second half that Mizzou was able to secure this victory. And then this was a game that me and you both wanted to see some of the secondary pass catching options after Luther Burden and Theo Weiss move on, and we got to see them. Joshua Manning had a touchdown with a jet sweep in the end zone, showed off the speed there, but the real star from this game, Brayden, was Marquise Johnson with 7 catches, 122 yards, and a touchdown. He is going to be an absolute star next year, and I was really happy to see what we saw from him, because it felt like he kind of got forgotten in the offense this year. Mizzou was like, oh yeah, I forgot we have this guy who can catch absolute bombs. It's like, where was that all year? I think some of it was still Brady Cook, and I know you and I were kind of ragging on Brady Cook both in the preview and like during the game and stuff, because there were still moments in this game where it's like, how do you miss that throw? Or like there was a wide open Josh Manning he had in the first half. They could have tied the game up with Iowa at 21-21, and he had an egregious overthrow to Josh Manning. And then I also kind of thought he overthrew Jordan Harris, the tight end, who's 6'7", 6'8", over the middle. He probably should have caught it, but you got to be more on target there if you're Cook. And I thought too, like at the end of the first half there, Brady Cook really botched that last drive before halftime, because when you know your defense isn't playing well, you just have to execute better to get points on the board. But all in all, Brady Cook, for his last game at Mizzou and for all the crap we've given him, and the fact that Theo Weiss went out in this game, Luther Burden didn't play. It was like the B team offense. No Norfleet, no Membo, no Tollison. Everything being considered, I thought Brady Cook played well in his final game.
Yeah, I mean, for Cook to be like one of the main pieces of our offense from that team, like literally being like the only guy from the offense of 2023 to be able to finish and actually play this game today, that says a lot about him. And while I am very ecstatic to see him gone and see what Drinkwitz does with his own quarterback that wasn't recruited by Odom and isn't Brady Cook or Connor Bazelak or whoever else, like, I appreciate what Cook's done for the university, going 21-5 in his last 2 years here. Like, it is undoubtedly an impressive run for him. And while we won 11 games last year and 10 games this year, it feels like we left something on the table. And I feel like a lot of it is because of Brady Cook's inability to perform in big situations. But today, I think, was the ultimate Brady Cook game in what you have out of him and what you can expect, which is a gritty competitor who is not going to look the prettiest, but he's going to find a way. We didn't have a run game because Carroll and Noel did absolutely nothing on the ground today. Carroll had 6 carries for 17 yards, and Noel had 6 carries for 14 yards. Cook had 14 carries himself for 54 yards, was our leading rusher. Yep. Again, 18 for 32, a lot of really bad throws. Like whenever he threw it behind Carroll.
That was bad.
Just bad boneheaded plays that are never going to work in the next level, which is why he's never going to see an NFL field. So again, this was the ultimate Brady Cook game. Outside, like, you have all of these bad moments, but he still found a way. The Missouri Tigers still found a way to win this game, whether it was aided by a bunch of penalties on the drive to tie it up 24-24, Blake Craig kicking a 51 and 56-yard field goal after the Toriano Pride interception. Like I said, that flag that kind of bailed us out on that 3rd and 20 where we got the late hit. It doesn't matter. Brady Cook found a way to win, and he's constantly done that. And Eli Drinkwitz has constantly done that, even when it's 3rd and 15, and instead of running it and getting it to a manageable field goal range for Craig, you make him kick a 56-yard field goal instead because you decided to take a deep shot to Marquise Johnson and completely overthrow him out of the back of the end zone. Like, I don't like those play calls. I don't like those decisions by Cook, but it ends up working out at the end because we're just not Mizzouing it anymore. We haven't been for the last 2 years, really. So that's all that there really is to say. This was the classic Eli Drinkwitz Brady Cook game that we've been seeing for the last 2 years, where Mizzou kind of pulls it out of their ass at the end. But you can't be too upset about it, especially since it's a bowl game and we are down so many weapons.
Yeah. I think because you mentioned like taking a deep shot to Marquise Johnson on 3rd down and making Blake Craig kick a 56-yarder. Like, that's stuff that I don't think happens if it's not a bowl game, because Drinkwitz came out and said it before, like, this is more so of an exhibition game. And you could definitely tell that was the mentality in the way that they called plays, and also the players in which they were putting out on the field. Like, we saw Tavoris Jones, he had a big catch in this one towards the end. And it's like, Tavoris Jones in 4 years has never seen the field. And then he goes out there on one of the most crucial plays of the game and actually contributes. And like, Daniel Blood got in there after we saw some injuries and stuff. He's not really a guy that saw the field all that much during the regular season. And that's why I'm also giving Brady Cook a lot of credit for this performance, is because it just was a lot of guys that he's not used to going to. And once Theo Weiss went out, or once it was reported that he wouldn't be returning to this game, which, by the way, I do want to comment on the injury and say I think that he probably could have played if it was like a real meaningful game.
Oh, but yeah, 100%. But there's no reason to risk it.
Yeah, that was Drinkwitz doing him a favor there and said, you've already shown enough. Because the thing is, for this game, they moved Theo Weiss into the slot in place of Luther Burden, and he was killing it. He was absolutely killing Iowa's defense from the slot, and that's only going to boost his draft stock because we've seen what Theo Weiss can do on the outside. But to show off that versatility like that in the first half, I think Drinkwitz kind of said to him, hey, you already showed the scouts everything. Yeah. No need to play the rest of this game.
Yeah, for sure. So, like, for him to go 5 for 75 in the slot today when he's been the outside receiver all year and he outproduced Burden, I'm not going to say that Theo Weiss is better than Burden, but
this year he was. There's no argument for this year.
I like, just from a production standpoint and from the fact that Theo had a better half than Burden had basically all season from where Burden's been playing, and Burden wasn't on the field today. So for him to go 5 for 75 and a half without Burden on the field in Burden's position, not saying that Theo Weiss is going to be a first round pick, not saying that he should be, but I definitely think that that's notable.
He'll be,
for Luther Burden's draft stock or Theo's. I think that he should be a day 2 pick.
Because
Theo completely balled out this year and was by far our best offensive weapon. And like, a lot of the plays where Luther was getting wide open down the middle of the field last year, we didn't see that this year. Whereas with Theo, like, he didn't change. Like, Theo Weiss was a constant producer over the last 2 years at the University of Missouri, and I will remember his time here very fondly.
Yeah, and what did we say in the preview too? They were going to do things in this game that we don't typically see them do because it's zero stakes. We saw them utilize the middle of the field. We saw them run trick plays. We saw them use Marquise Johnson, and it worked. It all worked.
Yeah. Like, we used Marquise Johnson all the time on deep shots last year in 23. We used the middle of the field last year all the time in 2023. And then for whatever reason in the regular season this year, we just decided, we're not going to do that. And then in the bowl game, we decided to go back to what worked all of 2023, utilizing the middle of the field a bunch, taking deep shots to Marquise Johnson, who had a career game and has me very excited for next year. And like, you showed all of this promise that if you did this in the A&M game and you did it a little bit more in the South Carolina game, we're in the playoffs right now. Like, plain and simple. So it's annoying. It's frustrating to have watched this game and see what this offense did do. The trick play that we tried, because I know that we both mentioned that we were probably going to do trick plays in the preview. That didn't really work out too well. No. But like I said, very frustrating to see what this offense is capable of. I know that there was no stakes, but we played very scared football the entire year, and I wish that we didn't. I wish that we played this relaxed and loose all season, because if they were able to do that and they weren't so rigid, then, like I said, playoff team.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I want to shout out Terry real quick, since we got him in the comments for this video, but he says Drink more wins than Pinkel, which is accurate. So Drink now with this win has more wins than any Mizzou coach in history in his first 5 seasons. So another feather in Drinkwitz's cap. There's a clip going around on Twitter right now. He hoisted, and I sent it to the group chat, Drinkwitz hoisted the trophy above his head, the Music City Bowl trophy, and he damn near dropped it on his own head. So that was funny, but that could have gone really badly. He almost dropped that trophy at the end there, but in typical Drink fashion, he finished. I sent it to the group chat. You should take a look at it. He almost damn near dropped the trophy on his head, and it looked like a big, hefty trophy too. I'd play it on here, but I don't want to get copyrighted or anything like that. So another thing too is Blake Craig looked like a completely different kicker in this game. He hits the 51-yarder. He hits the 56-yarder. And they could not be more down the middle. And they had plenty of leg power. Like the 56-yarder looked like it would have been good from 62. So
I just watched the clip of Drink.
Yeah, he almost dropped it on his head. It was bad. That could have been bad.
That could have hit the floor and just shattered everywhere. That's funny.
Yeah, no, it was bad. But, you know, offensively, this game, I would say this was about as good of a performance as they put out on the field all season long. It was enough to beat Iowa, even though it should have been a lot more than what was needed to beat Iowa. But of course, Brayden, defense and special teams had a game to forget in this one. Special teams gave up a touchdown. Blake Craig has quite the leg, but for some reason cannot seem to kick it out of the back of the end zone, which he should probably do a little bit more. And then defensively, the first half was particularly rough, letting Iowa score 21, and they averaged like 8 yards per play, which was like the most they had averaged in a half since 4 years ago. I believe it was maybe 5 years ago, which is just embarrassing. Now, granted, I don't know if the team was totally up for this game at the very beginning, but you should not let them be doing that. And like, this was their backup running back and their backup quarterback. Now, I did kind of trash talk their backup in the preview, because I'm like, well, if Cade McNamara sucked, then why would I believe that the backup is any better? And he was enough of a threat to stretch the defense a little bit. But in the second half, Brayden, I think he only threw for like 30 yards. He just wasn't that good. The defense did improve in the second half. Corey Batoon did make adjustments. Now, there were still a few times where there was a huge gap in between when the defenders got their hands on the running back versus when they were actually able to bring him down to the ground. Like, it seemed like the defender would make contact and he'd still run for like another 8 yards, which was frustrating. There's a lot to break down in the defensive performance, but overall, they tightened down in the second half and only allowed Iowa to score 3 more points, while Missouri's offense stormed back and won this game.
So what I will say about Mizzou's defense, the first half wasn't great. I was at work for the majority of the time of the first half, so I didn't get to see and dissect every single play and what exactly was going down. But Iowa was running all over our ass, and their quarterback was able to sling it. But like you said, whenever I got home and watched basically the entirety of the second half very closely, The defense didn't really let up anything. Luke Bauer did not have a good punt there in the fourth quarter, and Iowa was really close. Like, all they had to do was get 2 first downs, and they would have been in field goal range, and we'd probably still be watching the game right now, or we'd just now be getting ready to start this live stream. But Iowa, and this is a tweet from Gabe Power Mizzou, stat of the day is that Iowa had 24 yards and no first downs on 10 plays in the fourth quarter. That's impressive. For them to make those adjustments, do whatever they did at halftime, and then come out in the second half and only allow 3 points with 24 yards on 10 plays in the fourth quarter, that is extremely impressive and a testament to what Corey Batoon and this defense did kind of earlier in the season. Because at times they did look suspect down the stretch. But it's a Power 5 offense, even though it's Iowa, or Power 4 now. But even though it's Iowa, it's still impressive for this team to make those second half adjustments and only allow that many yards in those situations, and basically allow the offense to get back into this game. And the offense took advantage of the opportunities that they got, and that's why they won.
Yeah, I mean, they tightened up, and a couple players in particular that stood out to me. Corey Flagg made plays. Toriano Pride obviously had the interception later in the game. I know that you've dogged on Toriano Pride a lot. I would still like to see Mizzou add 1, maybe 2 corners in the portal and see Toriano Pride take on more of a reserve role, because I think he'd be a lot more productive as like a cornerback 3, just not as a cornerback 1 or 2. And it was nice to see him get that interception, maybe a confidence boost going into next year. Also, Johnny Walker, this was, I think, his 7th straight game with a sack, which is the longest in college football. He had 9.5 sacks to finish the season, and that's a guy that I think we're not talking about enough that we're really going to miss next year. Was quietly very, very good. He won defensive player.
Definitely a Darius Robinson replacement.
Yeah, and he won Defensive Player of the Game last year in the Cotton Bowl. I don't even know if the Music City Bowl hands out a Defensive Player of the Game, but if they do, it should be Johnny Walker again, because he had multiple sacks, and he also was getting held all game, and the refs were not calling it. And the refs, I mean, they could be a section on their own.
Bad on both sides.
Yeah, I mean, it's like every tackle was getting flagged for a 15-yard penalty. It's like, let the guys play. Yeah, they were bad. I don't even want to get any more into it. The refs were bad in this game for both sides. But yeah, Johnny Walker, we're going to miss him. I'm hoping that Zion Young will step into his place next year and take on that role. He seems like the next guy up, but it's going to be tough to replace what Johnny Walker brought them this year.
For sure. I think that Zion Young, I mean, he had 5 sacks at Michigan State last season, and then this year he was pretty productive for us. We still have Chris McClellan for next year, right?
Yeah, he's back.
Okay. Like, I'm not saying that he's going to be the replacement, but Chris McClellan is a really good defender from what I've seen from him this year. And then we have Darius Smith, the Georgia edge rusher that we got last portal season, who tore his ACL in spring ball. We have him coming back from injury, and then we have a few guys from the portal that we've already loaded up on at edge. So I think we have a lot of guys that are going to be able to take up and replace the production that Johnny Walker had this season, kind of like how Johnny Walker replaced Darius Robinson last year. So I'm not really too worried about the defensive line and the edge rushing core, because they've been pretty consistent underdrink for the last 2 or 3 seasons, or really the last 3 seasons. They've just been one of the better parts of this Mizzou's defense in this entire Missouri team. But what I'm a little bit more concerned about, if we're talking more about the portal, is the linebackers, because the linebacker play today wasn't the greatest. Even in the second half, there was it was the 2nd and 24 after the Iowa quarterback took he tripped himself because Johnny Walker was about to get him. And then right after that, we were playing really soft coverage, and Tristan Newsome just kind of took a bad angle to running back, and they got it to 3rd and 5, and then they got it to 4th and 1, and then they messed up the QB sneak. But we're going to need to get better linebacker play, and I'd like to have Tristan Newsome back next year, but I know that we were going over it in the group chat. We have Trotter and the Nebraska linebacker coming in, and then it would be nice to have Newsome back. And then we have Beasley, who is the 4-star from Michigan. And then I know you mentioned another underclassmen that we have.
Yeah, Beasley, and then Nicholas Rodriguez. He's a true freshman this year. I think he burned his red shirt, but he actually flashed in this game a little bit too. I think he's going to be a good player. I think Mizzou is definitely set for the future at linebacker. We'll see if Newsom comes back. Sorry to cut you off, Brayden, but for those that aren't following, Tristan Newsom otherwise would be out of eligibility, but because of the ruling that the NCAA made following Diego Pavia's lawsuit with the NCAA, not counting the JUCO season, Tristan Newsom is allowed to come back if he wants to. So we'll see if that happens.
Yeah. So if we don't get Newsom back, I think that adding another depth linebacker piece is going to be needed. We also have Curtis Jacobs coming back, maybe because Khalil Jacobs coming back because didn't he tear his ACL as well?
No, I think it was a shoulder injury. I think it was like a labrum or something like that. Or I could be wrong.
It was a pretty serious injury that ended his season. So if we could have him back as some solid depth, I'd feel good about the linebackers. But like my main concern this entire season has been our secondary. It kind of got exposed at points today. It showed up at points today.
Yeah.
But improving our secondary is really where I'm looking forward to if we're talking about next year.
Well, and there's a reason they're bringing in like 4 safeties in the portal already. Mm-hmm. That's an area of emphasis for them.
Because Marvin Burks, not it.
And I still think he'll be good. He's still extremely young. He's only a true sophomore. It's just, man, he cannot keep his eyes out of the backfield, and that really hurts him in coverage. And then secondly, there was also a play where he's just getting like destroyed downfield by an Iowa blocker. And like he's still a guy that will figure into the rotation next year, I'm sure. But yeah, like I said, there's a reason that they're bringing in like 4 safeties in the portal. As far as linebackers, I like what they got there. They're obviously losing Corey Flagg, who was great in this game. I thought on that last play, that last stand on 4th down, he was the one that jumped over the pile initially, literally just launched himself over, and he kind of looked silly doing it, but it forced the quarterback for Iowa to go the other way and then just ran right into the arms of Dalen Carnell, who wrapped him up and forced Iowa to turn it over on down. So like I said, the defense was rough to begin the game. It almost kind of felt like a Chiefs game where like the Chiefs are notorious for like the first drive of games defensively, just like letting the other team look amazing. But then after that, you make some adjustments. Maybe you wait like another half before you make adjustments, but or I say you wait till the second half, and then they were a lot better as the game went on.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I mean, Iowa scored 21 points in the first half, and I mean, the defense really only let up 17 points because of the kickoff return. So they let up 14 points in the first half and then only 3 in the second half. So it really wasn't too bad of a defensive performance because Iowa made their change at offensive coordinator, and they really didn't have that bad of an offense this year. Like it wasn't as historically bad as their offense was in 2023. So like they were a respectable Power 4 offense, still not the greatest, but allowing 17 points to them isn't the end of the world for a defense that was banged up at the end of the year. So you mentioned Marvin Burks. He was, whenever we did our preview for the entire season, he was kind of my breakout player because I thought that he was really good in limited appearances his freshman year last year. And then he had a lot more significant of a role this season because I think that the coaching staff thought the exact same thing, and they were willing to not go after safeties in the portal last year. And it didn't go the greatest. Burks wasn't that great this game. He's had his eyes in the backfield all season. He breaks in on the quarterback way too soon, which led to so many busted coverages, led to one today. And he gets caught looking in the backfield. It's like you said. So it'll be nice to have that more safety depth next year because isn't Carnell going to be out?
Like no. He'll be back one more year. He's got one more year.
Okay. I really like what Dalen Carnell's done for this team. Just as a culture guy and playing, he's been like he just kind of flies all over the field at certain points, and he'll just show up and take over a game in the secondary
Yeah.
whenever he needs to. It feels like he's been by far the most consistent defensive player on this team this season, because Pride had a really rough start to the year and got on my bad side really quick. And while he did have a better second half of the year, there were still points even in this game where he just pisses me off for no reason. Like, just something about his game just makes me mad. Norwood was really shaky at points in the year. Burks wasn't the greatest at points basically all season. But Carnell, it feels like, whether it be him dropping into the box and making good plays in the run game, or being the only safety that knows how to drift back and cover his third or half or quarter, whatever defensive scheme zone that we're playing on the back end of the field. Like it'll definitely be nice to have him back next year. And then we got that Virginia Tech safety already, if I remember right. Yeah.
Yep. Correct. Yeah. So, I mean, the secondary overall was really young this year. Here's the positive thing about them. They're all extremely young, most of them, and just about all of them are coming back next year, except for Joseph Charleston. So, well, and Sidney Williams and Trevez Johnson, they won't be back either. They're done. But for the most part, you return like almost everyone in that secondary, and they're really young, which means I think that there's still a level to go up for them. Because you mentioned how like the staff probably thought that they could step in, and I just think they weren't quite ready yet. It doesn't mean they're terrible. It doesn't mean that they can't get better. Because that's the thing I always stress, especially with college football players. Like, this isn't the NFL. Not everyone, is going to show something right away. Like, these kids have to be developed, which is the other unfortunate part that, like, Drinkwitz talks about with the transfer portal and everything. Like, kids don't want to be developed anymore, but they need that time. They want to
play immediately.
Yeah.
And if you want to do that, you kind of, like, we're going to see, sorry to cut you off, but like,
no, you're good.
The gradual progression of like where college football is heading is underclassmen are going to play at the group of 5 level, and they're going to start their freshman and sophomore year. And if they produce there and they're good enough, then they're going to go up to
they'll transfer to the SEC or the Big Ten or whatever.
Yeah. Like that's just how it's going to be. Like, you're not going to see Mizzou or Alabama or Georgia or LSU or Ohio State or Michigan. You're not going to see them recruit that many freshmen. Like, there's going to be a few, and this is something that Deion Sanders seemed to be really ahead of the curve on, because he only got 5 guys in in his high school recruiting class. And I know you criticized Deion for that last year, but that's just where the sport is heading.
Yeah, and I did say at the beginning of this offseason, I was like, you know what? I think he might have been ahead of the curve, because there's just no point when you know that in 6 months the kids aren't even going to be there anymore.
I mean, what's the point of Mizzou paying Williams Nwere $600,000 to develop for a season and then go to Nebraska when you can spend that $600,000 on a starter?
On a contributor.
Yeah, on multiple contributors.
Yeah, well, and that's the reason, too, we're seeing so much more parity in college football now, because the way it was before, blue bloods like Alabama could just stack up 4- and 5-star recruits and it wouldn't matter. But now, with playing time being available everywhere as well as money, kids getting paid, it's much easier to not sit behind someone for 3 years and then get your chance. You'd rather just transfer somewhere else where you can start and then also make money on top of it. So that's just kind of where we're heading in college football. But I know we're kind of going off on a different tangent here. So I'm going to bring it back to the bowl game real quick, and then we could probably wrap up this episode. But Gabe also said on Power Mizzou, Missouri has won 21 games in 2 seasons. With this win, they're ranked, 19th?
Yep.
So they'll have
19th before. So
they'll have
a little bit, I bet.
Well, they'll have a chance here to finish top 15 in the country. Not sure how you could be unhappy with that.
I mean, from the expectations going into the year and starting the year inside the top 10, I mean, it's a little bit disappointing, especially just looking back at that A&M game specifically and that South Carolina game, because if you play close in that if you lose close in the A&M game and you beat South Carolina, you're 10-2 with a close loss to A&M and a loss to Alabama, where you didn't have a quarterback, which the committee could have wrote off pretty easily, and then we would have been in place of SMU. or whoever else.
And another thing that Drinkwitz said, and I always remembered this whenever he first took the job, is like the goal every season. Well, the ultimate goal is to win. Well, he said the SEC East. Now there's no division, so the goal is to win the SEC. But now the goal is to win the SEC. Although the playoff is making championship games a little less valuable, but that's besides the point. Drinkwitz always said, I want to bring home hardware at the end of the season. Like, that's what I want to do. Now with the changing landscape of college football, again, the bowl games just simply don't matter as much. And Drinkwitz has even reflected that in his comments prior to this game. But Drinkwitz had kind of, in his first few years, failed to deliver on that promise of bringing home hardware at the end of the season. And now with the previous 2 seasons, you have a Music City Bowl win and a Cotton Bowl win. And while the Cotton Bowl is obviously a lot more prestigious than the Music City Bowl, again, it's just good to end the season on a high note. Win a trophy and add it into the trophy case whenever recruits come into town.
Yeah. It's like winning a bowl game is never going to hurt your program. So it's been a good 2 seasons. 21 wins as an SEC team is an impressive feat to accomplish. And I'm excited to see what the future of Missouri football has. I think our schedule next year is decently favorable, maybe a little bit more favorable than it was last year, because we get that A&M, South Carolina, and Alabama game at home, whereas we get Vandy, Auburn, and our other 2 home, Arkansas and
A&M
Oklahoma.
will be at home this time. You may have already said that, but yeah. So, no, a lot to be excited about. And a lot of players on this team that are still like really exciting, and that were like Marquise Johnson again. Like, I thought he was an absolute stud today, and him and Kevin Coleman and Joshua Manning and Bo Pribula next year. I just think that's going to be nasty. And like Bo Pribula, haven't really talked about him in this episode a lot, but I know people want to compare him to Brady Cook. Now, you and I both said like we think his ceiling is much higher than Brady Cook, but he is similar to Brady Cook in the fact that he's a gamer and he will leave his heart out on the field for you. And I think that type of attitude is what has allowed Brady Cook to win so many games at Mizzou, because we were talking about it, like, with the amount of games that they've won over the past couple of years and just being able to finish. Like, part of that is the grit that Brady Cook has. And I do think Bo Pribula possesses that same thing, but I also think he has a lot more arm talent and he's a lot better of a runner than Brady Cook, which just makes me really excited for next year.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. Like I said, and I will tell everybody watching this live, I'll tell everybody who's watching this after the fact, go watch his drive against Wisconsin when they were only up by 1 point when he came in as the backup. On the road in the 4th quarter, went like 90 yards. It was like just came in and just threw dots, ran all over them. Like, Luke Fickell has built a decent Wisconsin team and a solid Wisconsin defense. And I mean, Bo came in when Aller got hurt. It wasn't expecting to play and just shit all over that Wisconsin defense in Camp Randall. So that's kind of what I'm hanging my hat on with Bo Pribula and the packages that we've seen of them using him, and the fact that Penn State fans were pissed to be losing him, because a lot of them think that he might even be better than Aller, which I don't think is saying too much. But I'm excited for Bo Pribula. I'm excited for Coleman to be coming in. I'm excited for Ahmad, I forget his last name, Gardner? Hardy. Ahmad Gardner.
You were thinking of Sauce.
Yeah.
He's always on your mind.
Yeah. Hardy was a fantastic rusher who we've seen produce, and honestly might be better than what Kawan Lacey could offer, because we've seen Hardy produce at the Group of 5 level, whereas Kawan Lacey, we saw him produce a little bit this year, but now he's going to Ole Miss, where he was originally expected to go to, and we don't know what his ceiling is. We don't know what his potential is, whereas Hardy, we know what he did at ULM. So I like that, because Hardy is a lot more proven talent, whereas Lacey, you still kind of don't know. So we could have possibly upgraded at our future for running back. I think that we've got a much higher ceiling with Bo Pribula at quarterback, and I think that the floor is about the same. I think that our wide receiver room is honestly not – it's obviously not better, but it's not too much worse.
I think it's more
– we have the depth.
the thing, I'll say this. So with Luther, obviously the objective is to keep him happy and get him the ball, and all the attention is going to him. And same with Theo, really, this year. And it's like the offense was just condensed down into those two guys. And I mean, they're both really good, but it feels like now with them moving on, you can spread the ball around the way that you should have been doing before.
And there's a lot of weapons. More. You can get it to Coleman, because Coleman's going to be like the true X number one guy for sure. But you're not going to be I think he's going to be a lot more like Theo than Brayden.
Really? Because I figured he would move into the slot right in place of Brayden, but also Johnson looked pretty good out of the slot today as well. So I don't know. I mean, you can do a lot of things with them.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like you have a lot of guys that you can do a lot of different things with. And it's not like you're going to have to keep Coleman happy because he's going to the NFL after this year. So you can do whatever you want with him practically, because he's not just going to transfer midseason, because you can't do that. And then you have Marquise Johnson, who I don't see leaving. You have Joshua Manning, who has a bright future here. James Madison, maybe you see him get involved in the rotation. Daniel Blood, maybe you see him get involved a little bit. Brett Norfleet, who I mentioned earlier. You just have all of these pieces who aren't blocked by Luther Burden and Theo Weiss. And I'm not saying that like the offense is going to magically open up and be so much better. I'm just saying that there's a lot of potential. There's a lot of unknown. There's a lot of possibilities. And that's exciting to think about, and exciting to see where that takes this team next year.
Well, so like in the previous bowl games that Mizzou has played in before the Cotton Bowl and then the Music City Bowl this year, it just kind of felt, I don't want to say bleak, because I still always was excited about the future, but it's like you looked at the team and you're like, man, like there's a lot of just holes on this team. We suck here, we suck there. But I don't feel that way. There's still some unknowns, sure, but it's not like they haven't killed the transfer portal. It's not like the guys they're bringing in aren't highly rated or highly regarded. Like there's a lot to be excited about, even if it's unknown and that makes some people nervous. I think there's a lot of excitement, a lot of reason to be excited going into next year. Like Bo Pribula is a little bit of an unknown, but we've seen enough from him that I'm excited for next year. Same thing with the wide receivers. We never have seen really Marquise Johnson grasp a consistent role. We've never seen Joshua Manning grasp a consistent role, but we have seen enough from those guys that things could be interesting next year.
For sure. So
I think that's a good place to wrap it up. I am going to answer a couple more comments from Terry. He says, group chat that I'm not in, what's up with that? We can make a new one with you in it. And then he asks, do you know who the linebackers coach will be? No, not yet, but we should. I will comment on that real quick, because obviously DJ Smith, the current linebackers coach, is leaving to be the defensive coordinator at App State. He was a coach at App State under Eli Drinkwitz when he was the coach there for 1 year. I also believe it's his alma mater, so it's good for him. It's a good promotion. He's leaving on good terms, unlike Snake Baker. But that does hurt. That loss does hurt, because DJ Smith is heavily involved in some of the defensive game planning. He was essentially the co-DC for this team. So I hope that the linebackers coach that they do bring in can kind of do the same thing and help with the defensive game planning a little bit.
Definitely. Losing him sucks, but good for him. Happy to see him get a promotion. Hope he becomes a head coach somewhere and does great things. Or again, he left on good terms, unlike Snake Baker.
Well, I was going to say, or he could, or maybe Corey Batum moves on in a year or two, and then you hire him right back as your defensive coordinator at Mizzou.
I'd be perfect with that.
Because that's probably honestly the best path for him there, because he can go to App State, get that experience actually being a DC, and then once he proves himself, just come right on back. Give him a nice little raise.
Batum, who knows?
Yeah.
I could see the defense falling off a cliff next year. I could see them being about what they were this year. I could see them being a little bit better.
I feel like you never know what you're going to get with him. I mean, you didn't even know what you were going to get with him on a game-to-game basis.
Nope.
So it's just kind of
the run defense was fantastic, and then it was dog shit, and then the pass defense was good, and then it was terrible. You didn't know what you were going to get with Batum on a game-to-game basis. 100% right.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap it up now. So that is all for our breakdown of Mizzou's 27-24 victory over the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Music City Bowl. Mizzou, back-to-back 10-win seasons, hasn't been done since Gary Pinkel back in 2013, 2014. And Drink today became the winningest coach in his first 5 seasons in Mizzou history. Overall, a fun game for a bowl game. You know, that was the only game of the day after Christmas. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. Any other closing thoughts, Brayden?
I don't think so.
Well, that'll do it. So make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. You can check out the movie review channel, Show Me Movies, and it'll be in the description as always. I also need to mention that I checked before Brayden we went live. Nobody guessed the correct score, and I have a feeling so no one won the free T-shirt for the prediction contest. And honestly, I'd have to double check, but I will say that I don't blame you guys a ton because I don't think anyone saw the overhitting for this game.
No.
So, yeah, we'll have to figure something out for the T-shirt though, for someone to win it. But with all that being said, we're going to wrap this one up. So one more time, make sure you guys like, share, and subscribe so more Mizzou fans can find this. You can check out my work on showmefootball.com for more. We'll see you guys in the next one. And as always, MIZ.
ZOU.